Hello, Knights of the Roll Table. What we have for you today is a bonus episode. This is a one-on-one session recorded between just me and Matt, and it covers what has been going on with a branch from the smallest tree in the forest. Branch, Matt's character, the Goblin Druid, between when we left him way back in episode 3 of season 3 and his sudden reappearance in the most recent episode. So it's not very long, and we will have our regular episode out next week as usual, but we just wanted to include this little bonus episode for you for your enjoyment. We hope you like it. As always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and make life an adventure. So Branch is on the island of Giacca still. Recently, his friends left, and Captain Honeymist asked him to stick around and investigate things. The previous prisoners of the Squintillion, the creature that was holding you all captive, some of them are around in various states, and I think Branch in the day or two following has an opportunity to walk around and survey the island and kind of like see the state of things and see who's there and what state that they're in.
What kind of creatures would he have encountered as the other creatures being controlled?
So there's a regular just sort of like flora and fauna of the island, but the other creatures are kind of a wide variety of the flotsam and jetsam of humanoid creatures that made their way to the island, either because they fell for very thin ruses like the fake map, or they just made it there themselves, or maybe they were kind of like drawn to the same kind of power that Branch was drawn. But there's a wide assortment of creatures, some more sort of intelligent elves, orcs, goblins, and some creatures that were more creatures along the lines of gnolls and other more kind of like primal creatures.
But humanoid, like you said, so he'll probably be less inclined to care too much if they're hurt or not. Since they were all kind of falling apart last time, or from what I remember from last time.
Yeah, they were all in various states, so it's kind of like there's a freshness factor. People who had been sort of enthralled for not too long tend to be able to recover. If they were there for a long time, a lot of those creatures kind of wasted away right away as soon as they were out of the control. So, I mean, if you want to talk through a little bit of like what you'd be inclined to do in that day or two.
I suppose the first thing that Branch would want to do is he would, like you said, go around the island and try to just see who or what is there. In particular, Branch would want to check in on any animals that were on the island, the fauna, if you will, and see how they're doing.
Yeah, the creatures that have recovered are largely, it seems like this thing did a fair amount of brain damage, and Branch was able to sort of use his druid magic to hold that off a little bit, so he seems to be maybe a little addled, a little stirred up, a little not altogether as he would have been before this experience, but for the most part, himself. Whereas a lot of the other humanoid creatures are a lot less functional, a lot less intelligent than they were, but still kind of okay and needing to sort of like fend for themselves. The animals of the island are in fairly good condition, willing to kind of like chat and say hello to you. There's a lot of birds. There's some smaller mammals and bugs and stuff. It's not, it doesn't seem like any like very large creatures in the like ecosystem of the island.
Makes sense. It's an island, so
yeah. So
then I suppose Branch would go around into the the mentally decaying folk that he runs into. He would try to gather them all around. Branch wants you to come this way, and try to get them all into one general group and ideally keep them from trying to kill each other, any who are still around. And we'll probably have to try to get the animals to help him out with that.
Well, go ahead and roll persuasion for that general effort.
Oh boy. 10.
All right. So you do your best to kind of herd them along, and some are pretty easily led along, and some react. They don't seem especially violent to each other or violent in general, but trying to coax them along, some of them will like take a swing at you, and you have to like kind of dodge out of the way and coax them along, see if you can lure them with some food or whatever it is they seem to like.
He wouldn't try too terribly hard. If someone fought back, he'd be, okay, you stay here. And then he'd go off and try to help someone else.
Can do a little kind of like making loud noises in the other direction, and they kind of get annoyed. And to the extent that he wants to, you can kind of herd them along into one general area.
Turn into a bear and like scare him.
They'll definitely, to survive, need a little bit of providing for.
So let's see. There are definitely a place that Branch could help. There is he has the good berry spell, so I imagine he would be using that to help heal and just provide general nourishment for everybody. I think one berry gives you like nourishment for a day. Yeah.
Nice. Well, that will come in very handy. You hand out some good berries. And that seems to like gain their ill will. They start to, after a couple meals of doing that, I think they start to look to you kind of like an animal you start to leave food out for, starts to get like notices you and comes along, and like when they see you, they're like, they start to kind of herd around you. Might be a little bit uncomfortable.
Nice. Who is a good boy? Branch. Branch will take care of you. Here. Have a berry.
So there's also this thought of like investigating this island and the power that you feel in this island.
Yeah, do I get a sense? Does he get a sense of where that would be coming from? Is there like a location that it feels more powerful on the island, or is it sort of generally spread throughout?
It's definitely generally spread. It's definitely kind of the island as a whole, to the extent that you've had opportunity to kind of like explore that feeling, which is not a lot. But if you want to roll survival, might work. Make a survival roll.
Well, despite my +3, that was only a 9.
So you kind of like sit and look around and look for clues to this. What is it that makes this island not like a normal island, besides the obvious like creature that you fought previously? Because, I mean, one thought is like, well, maybe it was this creature that you were sensing, but with the creature gone, it's definitely separate that this island has a certain power.
Yeah, did the feeling of power change at all between before the creature was dispatched with and after?
Maybe a little bit. Maybe kind of a sense of like slight relaxation.
Oh, interesting.
It's a little bit less tense.
I don't know why I didn't think to do this before, but could I do a nature check? Just to see if the island feels like it is its own sentient entity. Not having the best rolls today. 10.
It's an interesting thought, but you don't really like uncover any major clues. So for 2 full days, you do this sort of like investigating the island and getting situated with these creatures that need some caring for, feeding them good berries, making friends, checking in with the natural creatures of the island.
I'd probably ask them too, if they have any clue.
I mean,
animals,
to the extent that you can even kind of like explain this and try to ask the question to the animals, it just seems like normal and regular to them. They don't really kind of get the notion of trying to explain like, why is the island strange? They're like, what are you talking about? Why are you strange? But that might just be because it's always been like that.
There was some place on the island that he was living in prior to everybody showing up, right? So wherever that would be where he was likely to hang out, and probably trying to get people not in that, but like
Swooping up
just
there.
outside. I'm picturing like Shrek, fairy tale creatures.
Definitely.
Get it, don't come in my hut.
So
Stick
you're in
my,
that kind of camp
just in the
area, which
swamp.
is kind of sheltered towards a little bit of the middle of the island with trees around. It's not quite in view of the Giaccan side of the island, which I think makes sense. Branch would probably want to be on the side where it's more unfettered view of nature and not the port and everything.
Yeah, that's definitely his style.
But you definitely hear a just enormous, just massive sound of water. It's not like any other sound you ever heard before, and it doesn't stop. It continues. You're not sure what it is. What do you do?
I assume there's some birds around. You said there's a lot.
Yeah, and they probably all freak out.
So any that stuck around, if any, he would ask to go check it out for him. And then he would go head towards it so he could see himself, because he doesn't want to be surprised.
Yeah, so some birds that you have a fairly good relationship with, some braver birds that you have a good relationship with, will head out, and you head out behind them. And just as soon as you get to a corner of the island where you can see the Giaccan side, it's totally unmissable. This sight of the backside of just this massive wall of water that seems to have some sort of creature within it, being just pressed up against this massive wall of fire, which you mostly can't see, but you can tell this water is, from your point of view, actually, you're just looking at a wall of water that is super unnaturally standing up, and there's steam flying up.
Would it
from
be like glowing?
Probably not. It's mostly made of water, but you would see all this steam flying up because there's fire on the other side, and like what you would make of that, I have no idea, but it looks just like extraordinarily unnatural. And go ahead and roll perception for kind of like what you're able to see, deduce from that.
All right. So another 10.
So I think you do have kind of like an impression of like that this wave somehow kind of looks alive, that there's almost this sort of like creature within it, maybe, or a part of it. It's a very strange sense of what is this thing.
How far away is the wave / steam?
Well, I think it took them like half a day or so to make their way out to the island, so it's fairly distant.
So it's got to be really big then for him to be able to see all this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the wave itself, if you were trying to guess specifically as Branch how big it was, you'd have a hard time like deducing, but like the wave itself, if you were correctly deducing, is like 100 feet tall and maybe 500 or more feet across. It's definitely, you'd have some sort of view regularly of the town of Giacca, and it's completely blocking it specifically from your point of view.
So he can see the town normally, just not right now. Got it. I guess probably he'd go to the birds. Go, please take a look and get closer. Do not get burnt or wet. And he'd ask them to go look at the wave, see what he can find out.
So the birds fly out there. And in not too long before you're able to get a view of this thing, things start to settle down. The main wave sort of like defeats this wall of fire and starts to, you see this sort of odd side of the middle of the wave sort of falls out of it a little bit. And so it's kind of like two waves next to each other. And then those two waves crash into the town, and smaller waves continue to kind of pelt the town as it starts to fall apart, but you don't have a great view of that. But eventually things kind of like calm down and it goes back to normal. The birds probably make their way back around that time to kind of tell you not a whole lot more than what you were able to kind of like see from there, that like I think the birds attempt to explain that as like the ocean got really angry and weird, and just like no concept whatsoever of how to explain that.
Okay, thank you, little bird friends.
I'm going to go get some seed.
You can have a berry here. All right, so the wave dissipates and washes over the town, and then it's basically gone at that point.
Things settle down. Town's pretty wrecked.
Yeah, Branch should probably pretty much just go back to what he was doing before then, try to figure out what's going on with the island. That was very weird.
So you kind of... Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's not like he has a boat or anything where he would go out there and check. And I think I'm early enough in my druid career where I can't turn into anything that can swim just yet. So wouldn't be inclined to go out and check it by himself.
So he kind of has to like shrug his shoulder a little bit and kind of sit down and going back to sort of like figuring things out and trying to connect to this island. And that evening, that experience goes differently than it has before. Oh. So you sort of like sit down, maybe sort of like when you're starting to bed down, you have a little bit of like a meditative like connection with nature is your sort of normal process of getting to sleep. And it's not so much that you hear a voice, but you like feel a voice of connection communicate with you.
Almost like the pull that I had to the island in the first place, or a different kind of connection?
A lot more like specific. It does feel like that way. Okay. Like it definitely in your mind is like, oh, this is it. But it's not just the feel of it, it's reaching out to you. And you kind of sort of experience it and start to say, Druid.
Oh, hello? What is this? Is this the island?
Yes.
Hello, Mr. Island. I am Branch from the smallest tree in the forest. Can I help you?
Branch from the smallest tree in the forest.
Yes, you can just say Branch.
There has been a great disturbance.
Do you mean the water, the big wave that is that hit the town?
Yes.
Are you okay? Were you damaged by the water?
We are not damaged, but we have awoken.
Good morning or evening, I suppose. Branch is confused. Why do you talk to Branch now?
You have cared for the family well. Perhaps you, Branch, could help.
Yes. Branch would very much like to help. What can Branch do for you, Mr. Land Island?
My sibling requires intervention. You must care for the creatures here.
Branch is already caring for the creatures here. What more do you want Branch to do?
They will need additional assistance. You suddenly feel essentially an earthquake. Like the island starts to rumble, not super violently. Like it's fairly jarring for just a moment, but then it's, not like an earthquake in that it like shakes for a couple minutes and stops. It's kind of consistent. You can it's a very weird sense that like everything shakes for a moment and lodges a little bit loose, and then it's just a very incredibly slow sense of movement, kind of like moving in an elevator, but you're inside an elevator, so you have no reference point for moving. It's just a little bit of you can feel in your gut that things are in motion.
So there was like acceleration, and then now we're just sort of coasting effectively, but I can't really tell where because we're no longer accelerating.
Yeah, well, so it was largely a lifting.
Oh.
And not a huge lifting, but kind of just a big jostle, and it seems like the whole island jostled at once. and is continuing to just very, very slightly move.
All right, Branch is gonna get out of his little hut enclosure thing that he's his lean-to, I imagine, and try to get to a view of the coast so he can see if in fact the island is moving, and if so, in which direction.
Yeah, so you make it out to the coast, and it does not appear that the island is moving. It appears that very, very slowly the island is lifting. And in the time that you make it out to the coast, just because you know the island well, you can just tell, like, by certain markers, by certain rock formations that are just, like, right along the coast, you can tell it's lifted maybe 10 feet or so and appears to still be just very gradually, more or less at the pace that the tide would be going out. It seems to be lifting up.
Hello, island. Are we going somewhere?
I will be required to move, but I do not wish to harm the creatures living here.
Branch is happy to help. Branch also does not want any of the creatures to be damaged. Is there another place for us to put the creatures?
Go in the water.
Oh, okay. Branch does not like water a lot, but okay. And he'll, taking a leap of faith, just sort of hop in the water.
So where you're able to hop in the water, what you're able to do is like dive down a little bit and see that a little bit further down, what has been dislodged is there's like a lip underneath the island. And the island is very gradually rising up. There's a place, and it looks to run the whole like length of the island, where you could kind of get up underneath that, and potentially, if it continues to rise, eventually that lip will be up above sea level.
Interesting. Not sure what Branch would do here.
It's not moving very fast, so you can kind of like, especially uncomfortable in the water, kind of like make yourself back, drag yourself back to the shore and shake off a little bit. Try to continue to talk to this thing.
Is the place under the land, is that a place where you would like Branch to take the creatures?
There will be safety there when we move.
Oh, okay. So we will go under the top of the island. No, so the trees and the bushes and the dirt will stay up, and the creatures, the beasts, and me, Branch, we will go under. Will there be a place for food? And where will you go?
Save the beasts. Save what plants you can. There will be shelter. You will provide. And actually, I think at that moment, you kind of like feel a surge of power placed into you. You feel kind of like the power of the island enter into you in a substantial way and boost up your abilities and sort of like supercharge your connection to nature. And you can make use of this by leveling up all the way to level 7.
7. Cool. All right, so Branch is going to go, I guess, first try to get in touch with like the standard animals on the island, because that's the ones he would care about first, and tell them to gather at the coast, around the beach, hopefully all in one area. And then he would do the same with the more humanoid creatures on the island.
So you're being asked to essentially like Noah's Ark this island into this like rising cave area. And I think as you're doing that, as you're bringing creatures down and gathering them towards the coast, the easiest place to kind of like gather up and prepare to do that is probably the cove, what was labeled Big Cove on the map.
Yeah.
Kind of group up there because there's an open area along the coast. And by the time you do that, this lip is starting to be prevalent. And actually, in view of there, you see this other kind of like island that's never been visible rise up, crest the water and move things out of the way. And you definitely realize, as you may have started to suspect, that like the island that you're looking at is definitely the head of a giant turtle, a good 100 feet across. And as it rises up a little bit more, there kind of creates a strait of land, which is its neck's rising up. And
Wow.
It definitely turns out that this island that you've been living on is a giant turtle that is apparently about ready to move.
So just to be clear, were we living on its head or were we living on its shell?
You are living on its shell, and its
Okay.
head just raised up.
And where the part that's asking me to help get everyone into is inside its shell?
Yeah, that basically, yeah, it's asking you to take shelter underneath its shell, because presumably when it moves, a lot of what the island is, especially if it goes underwater, will be washed away, and so presumably there's some protection there.
All right, so in addition to gathering the creatures, I think Branch will try to convey that they should try to dig up.
I think all the creatures freak the heck out when this happens.
No. It's just a Mr. Turtle. Turtles are friends. Turtles are good. Come, wait. Help me get plants. No? Okay. Sorry, Mr. Turtle. I think the plants will die. I will take what I can.